Hey, what's up, guys? So I want to talk about the whole Conor McGregor Floyd Mayweather fight because everybody's been talking about it and speculating. It sounds like the fight's probably going to happen, but the big barrier at this point is that Floyd Mayweather wants $100 million up front for the fight. He's just like, hey, pay me my $100 million, and then after that, like, we'll figure everything else out, but that's my price, $100 million. What ended up happening, or what's been happening, is Conor McGregor is willing to fight for a lot less money, but he's not necessarily willing to fight for less money than Floyd Mayweather. So if Floyd Mayweather gets $100 million, Conor McGregor's like, hey, you better give me $100 million as well. So there's kind of this stalemate going on with a bunch of egos flying all over the place, and that's the only reason this fight hasn't happened yet, is because Floyd Mayweather won't come down on this $100 million. Now, what the proposals have been something like, well, let's give people a little bit less than $100 million, maybe give you some commissions based on the turnout, which, you know, like, that's reasonable. I mean, if you're a good business guy, I'm looking at this situation, like, if I was in the position of Dana White or, you know, trying to negotiate one of these deals, I would totally, or, you know, even with these guys, you don't know. I mean, this event, like, everybody's like, oh, it's going to be the biggest event of the century, but at the same time, who knows? Who knows? I mean, will it be bigger than the Pacquiao Mayweather fight? Probably, but we also don't know that for sure. So it's kind of interesting because the business side of this is really what's holding it up. There's a lot of people that, I guess, on the business side, they're kind of like, well, we don't want to necessarily commit $100 million to Floyd Mayweather just to make this thing happen, because then Conor McGregor is going to want his $100 million, and it's like, well, doesn't make sense. Can we maybe get these guys a little bit cheaper? Can we negotiate something out? So that's literally the only thing that's holding up this fight right now. I mean, and it seems like these guys are ready to fight. It seems like in general right now, what's happening is Conor McGregor is just like getting pissed about this whole thing. Like, he is legitimately getting pissed off because he feels like, he's like, dude, like, Mayweather, just shut up and fight me. Like, why are you sitting there going on and on about all this stuff? And Mayweather's like, hey, I don't need the money. You know, McGregor's the one that needs me. But then it's like, okay, well, Floyd Mayweather, then why is it that you can't come down on your $100 million? Or why can't you get some commissions on the back end to make up for it? Like, so that's kind of the whole big thing with this thing. And it's kind of a bunch of drama. I don't, who knows if this fight's actually going to happen? I mean, it seems like there's too much money involved for it to not happen. So what I see happening right now is, it seems like Mayweather, what he's doing is he's basically just delaying, because he knows that the longer he delays, the more likely he is to get more money out of the deal. So that's kind of his game plan, because that's the thing about business negotiations, like, if you've got, like, in this case, the fighters have all the leverage, because the fighters, they're the ones that draw the crowds, they're the assets that are leverageable. So the fighters have all the leverage, and all the other outside parties, all the other negotiating parties, they don't have any leverage at all. It's all about the fighters. So what the fighters can do is they can basically hold out and try to get as much money out of the deal as possible up front. And then in general, like, if you just wait, yeah, I mean, you're going to make more money because more people are going to start kind of compromising. Hey, okay, fine. It's been 6 months. It's been a year. This fight's not happening. Okay, well, sure, we'll give you an extra $10 million on top of what we originally offered, right? So that's kind of the game that's playing here. It's a little bit of a stupid dance. It seems like the fight will happen at some point, but the real question is basically with Mayweather, he's got his poker face on, and it's kind of a question of, like, okay, Mayweather, like, at what point are you gonna fold and say, okay, all right, I'm in? Or, you know, so it's kind of this dance or whatever, and it's pretty much all about money and numbers at this point. It has nothing to do with fighting. It's just all about money. It's all about numbers. And it's going to be interesting because, honestly, I think it's to Mayweather's disadvantage the longer this goes on, because the longer it goes on, that's more time that Mayweather's getting older. That's more time that McGregor has to train in boxing. So if this fight would have happened like a year ago or 6 months ago or whatever, like when things were all heating up, at that point, Mayweather could have just gone in and cleaned up on McGregor. But the more time that you give McGregor to box and get better at his boxing, it maybe creates a scenario. And obviously, I mean, I'm not saying Mayweather would lose. I mean, that's absurd, because Mayweather, I mean, come on, the guy's undefeated. I will say that, yeah, he does like to dance around the ring. He doesn't necessarily like to get in there and fight people per se as much, but we'll see what happens, though. It is interesting, though. I would say it could be, not 100%, but it could be to his disadvantage the longer this goes on. Like, if this goes on, say, for another year or two, all of a sudden, Mayweather's getting older and older. I mean, he's not a young guy. You got Conor McGregor in his prime. It creates an interesting scenario. Now, it's not guaranteed, but the longer that McGregor's out there training, it's like, well, he's able to land top sparring partners and basically train with some of the best. You're putting him in a position where if he starts feeling comfortable with those guys in sparring, he could come out and actually maybe do some damage. And I guess that's what makes this fight interesting, because it seems like, yeah, the longer McGregor trains and stuff, it's like, well, maybe he's got a little bit more of a chance. With Mayweather, everybody's like, well, yeah, he's the favorite. I mean, he's going to win, but, it's worth watching, because just maybe McGregor might possibly pull something out of his rear end and actually win this thing. So anyways, it's kind of a big crock, though. It's all about money. It has nothing to do with anything else other than money at this point. Like, it's not like the good old days where two people have a chip on their shoulder and it's like, hey, I'll fight you anywhere. I mean, I'll fight you in my backyard. It's like, no. That's not even about fighting at this point. This is all about the money. It is all about the money. There's nothing else involved with this fight other than money. So we'll see if anything happens. I'd be surprised if something happened within the next 3 to 6 months. It's probably going to this thing's going to drag out for a year. Can't even drag out for 2 years. I mean, by the time this fight actually happens, we'll see if people actually even care at that point. So, I think it's really a disservice to MMA, because in the meantime, while all this bickering is going on, we don't have McGregor defending his belts. We don't have these big fights going on in MMA. So it's kind of bad for MMA, because it's just annoying. It's annoying that Conor McGregor isn't focused on ramping up for an MMA fight. Like, we all want to see him fight Khabib. We all want to see some of these big fights happen. Now, Khabib and Tony Ferguson obviously have that fight coming up, but if Khabib wins that fight and dominates, then we want to see Khabib and McGregor. We don't want to sit here and wait for McGregor Mayweather to happen. So, anyways, though, that's basically the update, guys. There's not really much to say about this fight other than people are just bickering. They're saying, well, we're planning on it, but they still got to get the numbers figured out. And like I said, it's all about the money at this point, not even about fighting. So anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Feel free to subscribe to my channel. I have a lot more content coming your way on, I don't know, I'll talk about MMA, basketball, politics, all kinds of random stuff. It's a variety show. So feel free to subscribe. Thanks for watching.